Працюєте. Доброго вечора.
Welcome, dear
Усім.
guests.
Мене звати Ірина Мацевко,
My
я
name is Irina
ректорка
Matsevko. I
Харківської
am
школи
president of the
архітектури.
Kharkiv School of
Можливо, перед тим,
Architecture.
як я почну свою
Before
коротку і
I
нудну
start
промову,
my short and rather
ще раз
boring
перевіримо, чи у
introduction,
всіх працюють навушники,
let us
тому що
check whether all the headsets are working,
нашу
because
сьогоднішню
this
зустріч ми будемо мати
meeting
двома мовами,
today
українською
we are doing in two
і
languages,
англійською,
Ukrainian
щоб
and
всім було
English. And
комфортно.
so,
Давайте, можливо,
for
ми
everyone to be
ще
comfortable,
раз
maybe shall we
перевіримо.
check the headsets?
Дякую. Дякую.
Thank you.
Отже, ми
Right.
починаємо.
So let's start.
Напевно, до нас ще
I guess
доєднаються
we are going to be
наші
joined
колеги,
by
але
our
вже
colleagues,
час
but
починати.
it is time for us to start.
Добрий
And
вечір ще
so,
раз усім. Дуже
good
раді, що
evening to
ви
everyone. We are really glad
сьогодні з нами. І я
to
маю
see you
сьогодні
here.
велику
And today,
приємність
it is a
заанонсувати
pleasure for
початок
me to
двохрічного
announce the
дворічного
start of a
проекту
two-year project,
збереження архітектурної
architectural heritage
спадщини в час
preservation in
війни,
times of war,
українська
the
модель.
Ukrainian Model.
Цей проект є
This
результатом
project
співпраці
is a
трьох
result of a
інституцій:
collaboration
World
of
Heritage
three
Organization,
institutions,
Харківської
World
школи
Heritage
архітектури і
Organization, Kharkiv School of
організації
Architecture,
Skeiron,
and
яка
Skeiron
займається
Company,
3D-документацією
specializing in 3D
пам'яток
documentation
архітектури.
of architectural
Цим проектом
monuments.
ми
This
долучаємося до
project
низки
is our
українських
contribution
і міжнародних
to a range
ініціатив,
of
які з
international and
перших
national
місяців
initiatives,
повномасштабного
which
вторгнення
started in the first
працюють
months
задля
of the full-scale
захисту
war
загроженої
to
війною спадщини.
protect the heritage
Війна
of Ukraine, which
Росії
is endangered by the war.
проти України
The
черговий
war
раз
of Russia waged
підтвердила,
against
як
Ukraine
брутально в 21
is yet
столітті
another proof
спадщина використовується
how
як зброя,
brutally
спадщина
heritage
використовується
is being
як
used in the 21st
інструмент
century as a
маніпуляції, інструмент
weapon, as
тиску
an
з
instrument
боку
of manipulation,
воюючих сторін.
of
І матеріальність
pressurizing the hostile
архітектури
parties,
містить в
and
собі
the tangibility of
нематеріальні цінності
architecture
суспільства
is
і
the body to
зберігає
the
пам'ять
intangible values
спільнот.
of
Тому
society and
руйнування
their memory.
матеріальності
So the
архітектури
ruination
це
of
не лише
tangible
про
architecture is not
руйнування
only
об'єктів,
about
це власне
the
про
destruction of objects,
стирання
it's about the
пам'яті
erasure of
спільнот.
memory of
І
communities.
зараз в
And
Україні є дуже багато
today,
ініціатив, які
Ukraine
власне
has a lot of
працюють і скеровують свої
initiatives
зусилля. Це і державні інституції, і
focused
громадські, і самі громади,
on heritage
які
conservation, and among
розробляють
them we have
програми по
public
збереженню.
and
І
private
наш
bodies.
проект,
And
власне,
our project
проект, який буде діяти на
is
підсилення цих
a
ініціатив
project to strengthen
збереження
the
з великим фокусом на
working
освітній
initiatives,
компонент.
and we
Отже,
are
ми будемо
focused
працювати, власне,
on
на збереженні
educational
спадщини
components.
через
So we are
поглиблення і
contributing to heritage
посилення
conservation
знань
by
фахового
strengthening
середовища, експертів,
the
які вже працюють зі
profile
спадщиною, а
training
також
of
з
architects and
молодим поколінням,
specialists in heritage
студентами,
conservation.
архітекторами,
And we
які в
are going
скорому
to contribute to
майбутньому
the
будуть
training of a
випускниками
young
і будуть
generation of
працювати
architects who are
з українською
going to
спадщиною
graduate in a few
після
years
війни.
and start
Отже, цей проект
working with
є з
Ukrainian
одного
heritage
боку
after the
якби
war. So on the one
відповіддю
hand, this
на
project
виклики,
is a
які нам
response
поставила
to the
війна
challenges
і
of the
щоденні
war
руйнування
and daily destruction
міст.
of
А з іншого
our
боку, це
cities.
також
On the other hand, it is
відповідь
a
на
response
виклики вищої
to the
освіти,
challenges of
яка зараз
higher
перебуває такий
education,
певний етап
which is
складного
now
реформування і такої дуже
going through
інтенсивної
another reform, a
дискусії про
very
те, чи
intense
ми, як
discussion
університети і
of
наші
how we as
освітні програми, як
universities and
ми
our
можемо
curricula
і маємо
can and
відповідати
should
на запити і
respond
потреби
to the
сучасного
needs
суспільства,
of
як ми
contemporary
маємо реагувати
society,
на
how we
ті
should
виклики
respond
нашого
to the
турбулентного
challenges
21
of our
століття і
turbulent
виклики війни,
21st
власне,
century and
через
the challenges of war
підготовку і через забезпечення
by
високої
providing
якості
high quality
знань
training
наших
to
випускників.
our
Отже,
future
якщо говорити так
graduates.
дуже
So,
коротко і
to put
сказати
it
одним реченням, про
briefly,
що наш
in
проект, то я
one
собі
sentence, what our
дозволю
project is about,
зацитувати
I would rather quote my colleague here, Vera Orlovska, who put it very nicely and laconically. Our project is about exchange and knowledge generation. So that is why today we have invited a lot of specialists from various areas of heritage conservation and projects to introduce you to our project and invite you to collaborate with us to start the discussion what to do with heritage and what to do with heritage now and in the future. Of course, such discussions must be continued. One discussion is never enough because we need to prepare for post-war rebuilding. And now I would like to invite our colleagues and excuse me, just one more thing before we continue. A very important thing. I would like to express our sincere gratitude to the Embassy of the USA to Ukraine, who provided financial support for our project. And now I would like to invite my colleagues to present our project very briefly so that later we will be able to discuss our challenges, our activities, our heritage conservation efforts during and after the war. Vera Orlovska, you're welcome. Vera is the coordinator of this project from the World Heritage Management Organization, and Daria Ozhiganova, who is the driving force behind this project, a person who designed the educational content for our project. You're welcome. Thank you very much. My name is Vera. I think I will start. It is a pleasure to tell you about our joint work and ambition. And I think I should start with the fact that our project is a collaboration of three partners. I represent the Heritage Management Organization, and it is based in Greece. Of course, another partner is the Kharkiv School of Architecture, who is our host today, and the hosting organization for the whole project, and the Skeiron company, who is doing fantastic work in 3D and digitalization documentation. Skeiron has a worldwide reputation as the leading specialist in this, and here they are. And our project is supported by the public diplomacy section of the US Embassy to Ukraine, and we are very grateful for the financial support that is provided. And we have a very ambitious common goal, to be modest. Our ambition is to train a new generation of Ukrainian architects who are going to work with Ukrainian heritage using 3D technologies, and we are going to do it on the basis of the Ukrainian expert knowledge, which is generously provided by the Kharkiv School of Architecture and Skeiron company, but also we are going to rely upon the international expert experience, in particular of my organization and other organizations who support our project in various roles as educators, as contributors and partners, which is exciting. The project is going to span over 2 academic years. During this time, we are using the format of comprehensive training courses, combining theoretical and practical components, both for students and professionals. The topics covered by the projects include 3D and architectural documentation, heritage analysis and conservation assessment, standards of conservation and legal regulations. Our ambition is to provide the training to at least 10, 40, 50 students, because the hosting institution is the Kharkiv School of Architecture. It is also going to provide us with the students, but it is open to students from other architectural schools of Ukraine. And so we are inviting you to receive updates from our project, follow our activities, and join our process. Besides, the project aims to train 20 academic professionals who are working in architectural education. This component is going to take part between the autumn and spring semester during the winter, and it is not going to be training for professionals. Rather, it will be sharing of experience in the format of training of trainers, so that the educational components could be upscaled to other architectural institutions of Ukraine. And also, we are planning to implement 3D scanning of architectural monuments in Western Ukraine. And please follow us here. We are planning this for winter and spring this year, and the list of these projects will be compiled in consensus with all the partners of the project, but also we are definitely going to consult the national authorities on that. And of course, our project includes a public program. Today is the first public event, and it is not the last. They will continue online and offline, and welcome to our public program, everyone. Our joint collaboration is not the first experience of our partners on the topic of heritage documentation. So I'm giving the floor to Daria, who is going to talk a bit more about this and the academic component to our program. Thank you very much. And on behalf of the Kharkiv School of Architecture, thank you very much for coming, and allow me to express my joy at starting this project, because I feel that collaboration is key to our project, and it started earlier, before this project. We had the pleasure of working together with Skeiron, with our students, and all our work was connected to heritage and to academic work with students. Together with Skeiron, we implemented 2 summer traineeships, 2 summer schools, on 3D scanning of Lviv architectural heritage. The first traineeship was initiated by Miroslava Lachovich in Munich. She was making this part of her own project of the post-war modernism in Lviv, and it was very successful because on the one hand we gave the students technical skills which allowed them to feel their own strength in working with heritage, and also to feel responsible when they work with such topic. And also it was very important for us to scan the important objects which hadn't been scanned and documented before, and now these data are parts of the Lviv Modernism archive. Here you can see specific results of the summer internships of 23-24. We are going to continue this practice, and I'm sure that we will make it even more beautiful and detailized. As Vera mentioned, we have planned quite a lot of educational events, and I would like to speak about the foci of such academic events, because the fall semester, which we planned together with all the partners, is rather technical. We start with equipping the students with technical skills to train them in 3D documenting of heritage and photogrammetry, and introduce them to GIS technology. So giving them the toolkit to work with the heritage using digital tools. Our further activities the next semester will focus more on theory of heritage and deeper plunge into the topic. I think that I will show this slide now to start talking about the spring semester, because the spring semester is first about theory. On the one hand, we are theorizing about heritage. We are teaching the students to think about it critically, and on the other hand, to be very technical about the ways to conserve it. So it is both a technical analysis and comprehensive work on heritage that will include critical analysis on the other hand. But also, it is very important for us to provide students, to equip students with skills and knowledge of documenting a heritage, of understanding specific legal issues of the process, and to train the future generation of architects who will be able to work with heritage. But as I said, this practical work will be really very applied, and they will be able to do it in the field. And our winter internships and summer internships are going to be focused exactly on that. And following the tradition, we are going to not only train the students, but also we are going to document the heritage objects which haven't been documented yet. And so this will be our contribution to the overall mission of heritage conservation in Ukraine. As Vera said, we are planning to train at least 40-50 students during these 2 years, but our ambition is much more, much vaster. And through the training of trainers and through the training of postgraduate students, we believe our influence will be upscaled, and we will be able to help other institutions to introduce the practices into their own curricula. And this is what we are planning for Training of Trainers program, which will be organized as 2 very intense sessions in curricular design. And we hope that piloting these courses, our experience in it, and training of trainers will help us train many more architects able to work with heritage, and this will be our contribution to post-war Ukraine. Thank you so very much.
Thanks a lot to everyone, and thanks a lot to you. And now I would like to invite the participants of our panel discussion for further discussion. The discussion will be moderated by Dr. Maya Kominska, who's a director of the program of Heritage Management Organization. So you're welcome to join the panel discussion. And I would like to also mention a couple of words to those colleagues who are joining us on Zoom. If you have any questions, you can type your questions in chat and we will read them aloud. And this way you will be able to join our discussion as well.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. I think we're still missing. We have one reluctant panelist. I am very sorry I don't speak Ukrainian. I will try to speak slowly to make it easier for the translators. But I will at the same time keep the time of our discussion. We have 40 minutes for the panel discussion and then 40 minutes for discussion with everyone. So I really hope that you will be joining discussion actively and asking questions. As Vera said, people on Zoom can type their questions in the chat and they will be conveyed to the panelists. So my name is Maya Kominko. I'm the director of projects at Heritage Management Organization. And I will start by expressing gratitude to our founder, the public diplomacy section of the American Embassy to the Ukraine. If you allow me, I will mention that I have been working in Ukraine since the beginning of war. I have been working here as a scientific director of Lviv, and in fact, I rather have been supporting the work of the heroes of heritage. Some of them are here on the stage, but some of them are in the audience. And the one person I would want to mention in particular is Taras Timo, who, together with his wife Solomia, they are among the unsung heroes of heritage protection. They were working tirelessly at the beginning to gather all the requests, all the needs, and we are very grateful to them. But Lilia Onyshenko has been absolute rock of support and very kind in guiding our work. And Igor and Yurko have been working with us as well. Igor, I don't think I need to, I wouldn't be even able to start telling everyone how much we have done for heritage protection. So I'm very proud to be here and very grateful to Ira for inviting us. I also have a very difficult task of introducing these panelists who are all absolutely wonderful. I will start with Ira, who has already introduced herself, but very briefly. Ira is the Chancellor of the Kharkiv School of Architecture. Kharkiv School of Architecture has been evacuated to Lviv in March 2022. Ira is a historian, and she is teaching courses on critical approaches to heritage, heritage rehabilitation, and heritage management. She has also managed many heritage projects, which especially projects on contested memories. And she always stresses the very inclusive approach to heritage. Well, this is, this is where I'm, my voice is beginning to shake because this is one of my personal heroes, Lilia Onyshenko, who is now the advisor to Mayor of Lviv for heritage, and Lilia used to be the head of the heritage historic environment protection at the Lviv Council. And she has been very patiently guiding all the international institutions who wanted to help and helping us to help effectively. And we will forever be grateful. We have Igor Poshyvailo with us. Igor is the director of the Maidan Museum. He's also one of the founders of HERI, Heritage Emergency Rescue Initiative. And that's an organization that has been absolutely instrumental in all the activities in heritage protection. And finally, last but not least, we have Yuri, who is one of the founder of Skeiron, and Skeiron is a miracle. Skeiron is an organization that was founded by these very young people who were very enthusiastic and very skillful, very knowledgeable, and they have absolutely transformed how we are thinking about documentation of heritage, not only in Ukraine, and there is a lot that the world can learn from you and hopefully will. So this is rather long introduction. Oh, sorry, and this is the very last but not least, is a very dear friend and colleague, Salim El-Manan, who is a heritage conservation architect with a very extensive experience in heritage protection in Europe, but also in the Middle East. And he is one of the unique people in the world with such a large experience in rehabilitation of heritage in post-war context, especially in Iraq. A little shout out to our shared founder, the American Ambassadors Fund for Cultural Preservation, because in fact, with the first time we have met, it was through the project that they have also supported in Iraq, in Lalesh. So, another reason to be grateful to our founder. So let me start. And I didn't ask Lily for permission, but I would like to start with her. So we have a very diverse set of amazing skills here. But you also have, your experience is very different, very diverse. And I wanted to ask you, from the perspective of your experience, what do you think is most important? What we should emphasize both for our project and also just going forward for protection of Ukrainian heritage and maybe even heritage of the world, especially in conflict areas and in the context of rehabilitation? Just a little question.
Yeah, and the answer should be short as well, I assume, right? Thank you, Maya, for this wonderful introduction, and thank you, Maya. As the head of Alif Fund in the past, because right now we are implementing the project that is still funded by Alif. This is the renovation of a very small church of Hamuletsk village close to Lviv, and it's now part of the Lviv territorial community. And if it hadn't been for this fund, I'm not sure if we would be able to restore this church right now. So Alif was able to fund this work, this restoration work. The work is underway, and this tiny church around Lviv will be renewed. When it comes to the project, this is a very ambitious project, of course. And from my point of view, from the bureaucratic point of view, right? Because this is my background. We lack the specialists, of course, in this area. And this project is very relevant, is very timely, but I'd like to start with a different point. Your project is called the preservation of heritage during the war. And during the war, it's extremely difficult to preserve heritage. And we can look at what should have been done before the war, and we didn't do it. And based on that, having analyzed that, we can also build next projects. And I will start with 3D scanning, because this is an important part of your project. In Lviv, there are 2,500 national importance monuments, and some of them are part of UNESCO World Heritage list, and some of them were scanned by this company Skeiron before the war, and this effort was supported in the framework of international organization. I think about four objects were scanned like that. Why so few? Of course, it's not cheap, but before the war, if we asked the city budget and asked for funding to scan these objects because the war might happen, it probably would have been unusual to them, and we also didn't contact them. I think that these objects were scanned only because there were supposed to be some conservation works there, and this scanning happened thanks to the budget fund. It was a mistake eventually, because the scanning started right after the beginning of the war, and we started searching for various funds who could support us. And if we look at Ukraine as a whole, very few objects were scanned around Ukraine. For example, there's a university in Chernivtsi that is part of the UNESCO World Heritage list, but well, at the beginning of the war, this was not a priority. We also did not have any program whatsoever to conserve the heritage in case of war, because in the first days of war, we acted in a chaotic way. We didn't know what to start with, what to protect first. Mr. Pozhevailo was there with his organization was there, and there were specialists and experts in Lviv. But in the first stages of war, we acted intuitively because we didn't have the program, and unfortunately, And I don't think we still have a program. And it's important to have a program, a step-by-step program, because it will help us protect the objects and find a place to protect them. So I think this could also be one of the objectives of the project, to develop such a program, to categorize the objects. We know that we have to prioritize here, to select the most valuable objects and to work with them. And we would have to decide and prioritize what we should protect first of all and where we could put them. If we look at Mariatsky costume, there's, I think, during the war, Polish conservators didn't think of anything else except for taking the sculptures from the object and hiding them in the monastery. But there was Velichka nearby with its underground tunnels. They could have hidden it there. And yes, these statues, the monuments were not stolen, but they were under shelling. Not all of them survived. So not only should we have the categorization of the objects, we should know where we should hide them. In your project, you also mentioned the normative and legal base framework. You will study it, but our legislative framework is not in line with the modern requirements, with the modern demands. So I think that in Ukraine, we should probably initiate a law on the protection of cultural heritage during the war and during critical situations, because there are critical situations besides the war. Let's have a look at Poland with its flooding that happened recently, and they actually developed a document like that based on their previous documents and taking into account our problems that we shared with them, because right now we do have some experience to share in the negative meaning of this word. And this is also something that is necessary to focus on. And this is something that we could work on during the war. Thank you.
This is a fantastic answer. Thank you so very much. And I didn't say that, but it would be great if we could keep. I will keep an eye on me, and I will wave when your allotted time comes. But this is. Thank you so very much, Leah. This is wonderful. So shall we go to Igor next? So the same question, Igor. What do you think we should? What is the advice you would give to us and to to our project, but also to everyone? What do you think we should emphasize from your experience? What should we focus on? And if I'll keep an eye on the time, because I know that you have a lot of knowledge, and I'll just ask you to condense it to 4 minutes.
Good evening. First of all, thank you to the organizers of this meeting, to the Kharkiv School of Architecture. Thank you to Maya and to the funders, to the donors who support us, because this is a crucial project from the practical standpoint. In particular, we have some students among the audience, young people here, and the situation that was described greatly by it's misunderstanding what we need to do first of all right now. The realization that we are not ready right now to proceed. We didn't develop a systematic approach before, and it's not only related to the war, it's about the response to emergencies as such overall, because Ukraine right now is in the risk zone when it comes to natural catastrophes related to climate change, earthquakes, and there are other factors that could threaten the country. We didn't think about it before. And very often, people say that the major risk right now is the war. Yes, but we don't focus so much right now on climate change and other factors. And what we're trying to do in the first days of the war, of course, those were some tactical actions at the operational level. Protective equipment, protective materials, but documenting the heritage is a universal step that helps preserve not only the heritage that was overlooked before that, but also preserve this heritage that was damaged or destructed. At the beginning of the war, we discussed a lot on how to preserve immobile objects of the heritage, architectural monuments, historical monuments. And we involved international experts to discuss Sofia Kyivska, Sofia Church, because as you remember in 2022, there was a threat that Russians would launch a missile attack on Sofia Kyivska Church. There was a threat like that. And those brainstorming procedures with the military personnel, with engineers, with experts did not lead to any positive result, did not lead to any productive result that we could protect the building with any kind of construction. And the only effective way was documenting, creating 3D models and scanning. That's why it's so important. And our initiatives, together with our initiatives, other initiatives, what do? We document the risk in deoccupied territories where it's crucial in order to monitor the very condition, the state of these buildings. And this is very important because during the war, we cannot allow ourselves to talk about such a luxury as reconstruction. We talk about stabilization and preparation for early restoration. This is the important stage because we have to preserve our cultural heritage objects until the point when we will be able to have the human resource, the expert resource to move forward. And in part, thanks to this program, we will ensure that we have such a resource, the financial resource, the human resource, and the time resource. And we had a lot of supporters of our project. Right now, we have many supporters, and what we see right now is that we lack expert architects, constructors, and engineers that would go to the field, into the field with us. Because if we look at UNESCO form on the damage risks, we lack local experts, we lack local architects, local engineers. And you saw the damaged objects, right? It's very difficult to work there. It's not only about damaged roofs or damaged windows. Those are very complex damages, and we need experts who would be able to provide expert help in filling out the forms in a couple of hours so that these forms could result in a comprehensive report that would lead to the plan of the immediate steps that we should take. I'm about to finish, yes. Documenting is not just for the sake of documenting during the war. Documenting of our objects of heritage is an important question because it prepares us for the emergencies, even in peaceful times. Documenting is important. It's expensive right now. It's complicated. It requires experts. It requires technical equipment, and we would have to react to the very war, to the attacks that result from the war, so that we at least maintain and preserve things that were damaged intentionally or unintentionally during the war. So I would like to suggest that you have more practice. Of course, I remember that there were 30 objects that you plan to document in the Western Ukraine, but if you have a chance, we are happy to invite you into our project. We will go to the regions where objects were damaged by the war, of course, taking all the safety precautions, and you will see different circumstances, different types of damages. And it's very important to include this experience so that our young experts also learn from the experience. Our students will be able to teach further generations on this matter.
Well, this is fantastic. Thank you. We might take you up on this, on this invitation, Ihor, and we need to recognize the amazing work that Harry is doing, that you are doing. I mean, thank you very much for that. Jurko, now there was much emphasis on the importance of documentation, so you are the best person to follow. So what do you think we should? What do you think we should? How do you think we best can take it forward? What we should emphasize in practical terms, also in terms of documentation, details of documentation. How do we prioritize? How do we optimize?
Thank you very much for your question. I would really love these courses, this training to inspire people the way we were inspired once. I often relate this story when I was walking along the corridors of my institute and I heard and saw the missiles flying by. And so in some time, we decided to gather together our friends so that we could make donuts. We could actually make a 3D model of our school. And so we were inspired. And every time with every effort, we try to make it better. We have been cooperating with Kharkiv School of Architecture for 2 years already. And I don't know why I'm calling these students children, actually, our kids. And I saw these kids' eyes, which were really burning with enthusiasm. And one of the students wrote to me and said, Yurko, I'm here in Kiev, and there is one building here which has only walls left. I would like to scan it. I have already made 100,000 photos, but my notebook's memory is full. And so we provided him some skills, and actually he did it. And I hope to see the final results in some time. So this project for us is this project to inspire. When you start doing something, you are inspired in a different way. And I would also like to mention Ben Cassiro, the head of the organization who died, I guess, a few days ago. But this was the person who stood at the beginning of laser scanning, and he introduced it to architectural practice. And today we have 300 objects scanned, and they are doing, they're working with heritage, and they have inspired us. They have inspired Yegor, who worked with this Kiev building. And I guess that this inspiration leads to understanding, and it raises awareness. This is my logic.
This is wonderful logic and wonderful response. Thank you so very much. And if we're talking about inspiring young people, then Ira, you are also the best person to follow. So can you answer the same question really about the emphasis going forward, the most important things?
Thank you very much. So this is what we were doing today with Salem. We were inspiring students. Salem had a meeting with them and showed how to work with heritage. I guess the way to inspire is to talk about heritage and to use new approaches, sometimes state-of-the-art approaches. And heritage is the key component of the studio, which we have introduced right after the war started. But talking from the educational perspective, I would like to say where we are, and then we will continue with the logic of how to contribute to keep it going. So when we are talking about Ukrainian universities, when we are talking about architectural and universities of arts, we have a long tradition of the departments of restoration, and we have a very powerful tradition. Yearly, they graduate a lot of students specializing in restoration, and this is the word. Also, we have a long tradition of museum studies and monument studies. When we are talking about the heritage studies, this is a new approach for our universities. I guess it started around 10 years ago.
Війна нам
The
поставила
war
старі і нові питання. То, що
actually
ми
asked
не
the
зробили,
old
і то, що
questions
нам ще
and
треба
posed the
зробити.
new questions
Про це вже
too.
говорила
Something we
Ліля і
didn't do
Ігор,
yet,
що
and
їм
something
не
we need to
вистачає
do,
спеціалістів
like
оцього
Lila
такого
and
вузького
Igor
профілю.
said,
Це
and Yurko said,
спеціалістів,
they
які
need
мають нові,
specialists
дуже
which are very
актуальні знання
focused
про
and
методики,
which have the
методології,
skills which are
реставрації,
up to date
консервації,
in
збереження
conservation,
документації. Це одне велике
rehabilitation,
питання,
and documenting
на яке ми,
heritage. This
можливо,
is
частково
one
можемо
comprehensive
швидше
issue,
просуватися через те, що ми маємо
and
цю базу
we
цих же
must
кафедр.
tackle it
Тобто нам треба більше
using
працювати з
already the
новими підходами, з
foundation that
новими
we have
методологіями, знову ж таки
in
навчати
our
викладачів.
architectural
Інший
universities. We
запит,
need
який
to
також
train
дуже сильно йде від
teachers in
локальних влад,
new
з якими це мій
state-of-the-art
особистий
technologies. Another need
досвід,
that
це
we
на
have
розширення
is
рамок
to
компетенцій
expand
архітектора.
the competence of an architect.
Міським владам і громадам, які
Local
працюють зі
communities
спадщиною,
and
їм потрібні
local governments
спеціалісти,
need
які вміють
specialists
актуалізувати
who are
спадщину в
able
сучасних
to
культурних
make
контекстах. І оце я вже
heritage
закидаю
up to
якби на
date.
це
And this
наше
is
майбутнє. Так? Тобто це є
something for the
люди,
future.
які вміють критично
These are the
осмислювати
people
спадщину,
who
які вміють
can
заводити
approach
її як
heritage
важливу
critically,
частину
who can make it an
інтегрованого
important
розвитку
component of the
міст і
integrated
громад,
development
і
of
які
cities and
зрештою
communities,
вміють
and
працювати зі
who
спадщиною як
know how to
з
work with
інструментом
heritage as a
для
tool
економічного, культурного і особливо
to
соціального розвитку
encourage
міст. Отже, це
cultural,
є архітектори,
economic,
які
and
володіють
social
великим
growth
корпусом
of cities.
теоретичних
And so
знань і
this should be
підходів в роботі
specialists with a large
до сучасної
toolkit
спадщини, які
of
володіють інструментом
approaches towards
партисипації, так, тому що
heritage, who
роль
have the tool of
архітектора дуже сильно
participation,
змінилася.
because the role of the architect is
От
very
і
different today
зрештою
from what it used
нам
to be.
потрібні також
And we
архітектори,
need
які
architects
будуть державними чиновниками,
who
які
will be
вміють, я би
state
так сказала,
officials,
можливо, неправильним
who
терміном, стратегувати спадщину,
will
щоб
strategize heritage
її ефективно
to
використовувати.
use
І це
it
нам особливо буде
efficiently, and
потрібно
this
після
is
війни,
what we are
коли
going to
нам треба
need
буде
very much
приймати дуже зважені, дуже
after the war, when we
професійні
will need
рішення
very
про те,
well-balanced,
що нам
very
робити з спадщиною, яка
professional
повністю зруйнована
decisions
чи
about
частково.
heritage
Що нам
which is
зробити з
fully ruined
масовим
or partially
бажанням
damaged,
спільнот
what to do
відновити
with
її
the
повністю, зробити
mass
репліки, щоб
desire of the
загоїти
communities
свої,
to resurrect this
свої
heritage,
рани.
to
Що нам
heal
зробити з
their
спадщиною, яка
wounds.
для нас зараз не бажана,
What
наприклад,
to do
радянська
with the
спадщина, яка буде частково
heritage
зруйнована.
which
Так, і
is
дуже багато таких питань, на які,
undesirable for us,
власне,
like the heritage of
архітектори
the
тут є
Soviet
дуже
times. So these
важливими
are the issues
акторами. І я вже
to be
підходжу до того, що,
tackled.
власне,
And in
виховання,
this process, architects will
розширення
be
цих
key
рамок
figures.
кваліфікації,
So we
виховання
need to
таких архітекторів
expand
потребує
the
нових курсів,
qualification scope.
інтердисциплінарних курсів
We
і
need new
інтердисциплінарних
curricula, we need
підходів до
new
викладання
subjects and interdisciplinary
дисциплін про
approaches to
спадщину
training
саме для архітекторів. І оце
heritage
якби та
disciplines
річ, яку ми зараз
for
маємо готувати,
architects.
тому що після
And
війни,
this is
як
the
сказав
idea that we
Ігор,
are
в нас вже не
going
буде
to
основне
discuss
питання
today, because
просто
after the
зберегти
war,
це так,
like
як
Igor
є.
said,
У нас є
our
завдання сенсативно
our
це
challenge would be not just to
перевикористовувати з
keep
дуже
it the way it is.
чутливим,
We will need to reuse our
дуже чутливою
heritage, to be
пам'яттю
very
про війну.
sensitive about the memory of the war.
Well, this I absolutely agree with you, and thank you so very much for this answer. Salim, now you have a unique experience because you have worked in the countries that are recovering from war. So what is your approach to this question?
Firstly, thank you. Thank you, Lviv. And it was really a special moment earlier, speaking to the students. I used to be an academic some years ago, but now, the last 10 years or so, practicing in heritage, in environments which are post-conflict. They've experienced similar kind of wars to which you are experiencing here. Now, the subject you're introducing seldom is practiced by academia in architecture schools. In UK, very few schools you will get that integrates heritage and conservation management within the curriculum. So introducing this in itself is fantastic, and I think it will benefit post-war reconstruction, conservation greatly. There's a couple of things, or a few things, three things in my view will be very effective if you do manage to introduce them. Documentation and analysis. Documentation is one thing, but you need to understand it and analyze this, because otherwise it's just that. It's a document that can belong in an archive. How do you then understand this? Then once you understand this, how do you begin to develop or take this information and make it into a detailed brief and scope? That's the next step. Understand how to create a brief, how to scope a project, especially in the heritage sector, because it is so nuanced. There's so many details you need to put together. And it's a very important skill I think the students should begin to explore and become part of this course. Third element is how do you then take all this information and structure it in a project plan? How do you use this and implement this in a project plan which you can see it through? It's again, because if you know, in Iraq, we've seen a lot of documentation. I'm dealing with one now. It looks beautiful, but how does that then translate into a project which you can implement, you can monitor, and which can be successfully delivered? So these three things, in my view, are very critical components of any heritage architectural education. I think if you introduce this, it will evolve successfully. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. This is wonderful, and also helps me to transition smoothly to the next question, which was the question about the priorities and different perspectives. And I think that because we have slightly run over the time, but it is entirely my fault, let me stress, because I did, the things you were all saying are very important, and I think they were very important. It was very important to let you finish. But maybe now, instead of going one by one, I will ask the question to all of you and let whoever wants to answer, although I know that some of the panelists are shy, and so I'll strongly encourage them to answer. The question is about priorities. How do we reconcile, you have numbered elements, you have numbered the priorities that you suggest for teachings, but very often priorities are different in heritage preservation. The different priorities by local people, put forward by local people, by national or local organizations, international funders. How do we reconcile these priorities? And Lilia, you are smiling. So even though I said this question is open, it is open to everyone. I'm going to hand the microphone to you.
Right, I'm smiling because this is exactly what the situation is. We each have our own point of view, and each point of view may be different. So this is our challenge, and I hope that this challenge will be really urgent after the war, but we must start now how to really document the heritage now that we will be rebuilding, rehabilitating after the war. My question is, 20 academic professionals announced by the project to be trained, but who is going to train them? I hope that we will engage some international experts in our training, but I hope also that our legislation will allow international architects to practice in Ukraine and to participate in such projects together with Ukrainian architects, because presently we don't have this opportunity. We have the certificate system which doesn't allow international architects to work on their own in Ukraine. And the same goes for architectural and conservation companies. And I do hope that after the war, we'll be able to engage the experience of other countries. What to do? We need to study this experience. I know that where you were working, Salim, it was all under the aegis of UNESCO, and because the city was destroyed to the ground. And that is why UNESCO started this project. We understand that we also have the aegis of UNESCO over Lviv. We are planning to open a UNESCO hub in Lviv, but we need to start thinking how we are going to study this international experience, the experience of Warsaw, beautiful experience when at a special time in history, they refused to follow the Athens Charter and decided to not to rebuild, but to build so that it could be used for living. So these are the problems, the challenges that we will be facing. We must start discussing them now, not to wait to make yet another mistake of waiting. Talking about the priorities, I understand that we are prioritized in terms of heritage conservation in times of war. It is extremely important to provide monitoring of the situation that we have now, because priorities may be approached rather formally, like something for civil servants. But these are the monuments which are already registered in the national or local rosters, but there are monuments which belong to no one, which, for instance, this applies to religious structures, religious buildings, and they are used by religious communities. And as soon as these structures are ruined, then they're simply ruined. There is no funding to restore them. And this is a gap. And I guess that if we start with the auditing the available monuments, the destroyed and damaged monuments, I think it would be a good starting point for us to understand what we need to rehabilitate, because there is no sense in rebuilding everything that was destroyed. And instead of like 100 village clubs, build one, but which will be up to date. And also talking about the status priorities, some monuments were lucky, they are registered, but others are not, while they're still valuable for local communities, and they are the hubs for their cultural identity, for their memory. And talking about UNESCO, yeah, Lviv, Odessa are on our list. And the downtowns of these cities are listed as UNESCO objects, but we understand what kind of situation is there. We need to prioritize what we can serve. So I guess that we already have the priorities. If we fail to audit what we have, then we fail. And this is a national issue, an issue of the national level, but at the same time, of course, local governments must participate. So the initiative must come from the bottom. It must be grassroots initiative, but it must be supported nationally on the national level. And it's not about prioritizing. Each region has its own priorities. Lviv and Lviv region has already identified its priorities. They need resources. They need modern technologies. They need to find investors. And one more important issue here. Quite often the documentation is linked to photogrammetry, 3D scanning, and UNESCO reports, which are regulated by the Cabinet of Ministers. They really give a very formal opportunity to provide structural works, to start structural works. But this is just one way, and there are no other ways. And so we must have our monuments documented, and they must be analyzed. Salem mentioned this. Documentation is not enough. We must later analyze it and then we need to understand what exactly is worthwhile preserving and worthwhile reconstructing, rebuilding, and with the application of international standards so that we could find international partners and sponsors. And here, yes, 1 to 3 priorities then will have to be taken into account.
Спектр, про який я говоритиму, бо я можу, певно, говорити тільки з сфери діджиталізації.
So I'm going to talk about digitalization because this is what I know best. And sometimes our monuments is like an old suitcase. Don't want to throw it away, but it's so uncomfortable to use. And I want us to transfer the monuments into assets so that the monuments are open, so that the people understand what's in that. And when all of them are closed, it's difficult to get in any place. So I would probably focus on the fact that the monuments should be opened and available, accessible to the world. And this is what we are trying to do in our organization. Andrei is actually organizing a large exhibition where printed monuments from Ukraine traveled around Europe. And before that, those objects were not known. And people know Ukraine through the prism of some simple things about Cossacks, something like that, some major historical milestones, but we should show our culture in various ways. In this way, this old suitcase could still be transformed into something comfortable, and we would still be able to use it. Well, it's a rather sad but probably very practical comparison. And I would probably like to talk about a different aspect. As for me, we don't have different priorities. We have one common priority, and whether there is a war or not, our priority is the preservation of the monuments. But what we understand by conservation or preservation might be different. So we should start from the outset and talk about what we mean by this notion. And the same goes for heritage. You see how we narrowed down the heritage to only monuments in this discussion. So we should discuss what we mean by heritage in the 21st century. What is it? What does it mean to us? Do we change our approaches and understanding of heritage? And what is conservation for us? And here I would like to quote Hannah. Let me share our conversation that we had. I invited Hannah to join our discussion. Hanna Havrilivna is the initiator and the lead of an amazing project, Heritage UA, that actually works with heritage monuments in small towns, in small communities, and restores them. And when I invited Hannah, she said, Ira, I like the topic. I will come, but I will not help you there. But the architect and we have a very different understanding of heritage. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, you see, for me, it's about breathing in new life to heritage. And the architects talk actually about conservation. And in this situation, maybe I'm mistaken, we will have a chance to discuss it, but I think it reflects the overall situation. I think these two very different approaches that we only conserve, restore, and document one of these approaches, but these approaches do not contradict, they complement each other. And this is something that we should discuss with experts, with other stakeholders. We should discuss what we mean by conservation. Do we mean maintaining the appropriate condition and documenting? Or do we mean the next step when this heritage is being used by modern communities for their purposes, for their current needs? And another scary word that is almost never used in Ukrainian discourse is the usage, the use of heritage. It has this kind of slightly negative connotation, and I think that this points, what I mean is that we all talk about conservation, but for some reason, our approaches are in parallel, but they are not united. But they have to complement each other. So how do we agree on this? How do we find common ground? Maybe the expert circle, and here I'm referencing myself, we should accept the fact that we lost the monopoly for decision making. We are not the only ones in this field. There are many players here, and that we have to persuade each other, talk to each other. We should build a dialogue with each other. And when it comes to the communities, they should build more trust to experts. And when I say trust, Salem also mentioned it when he shared his practice with students, how he as a mediator brings together various actors and how he builds trust as an architect and how long it takes to build this trust. And so I think that the key reason in this definition, and it's so we should have a common understanding of these definitions.
It's a problem because we see not only here, I don't know here, but we see this differences in priorities from different specialists in UK, and we have differences with planners, differences with the local government. The funders have another pole. The architects have another direction. The engineers want to take a project in a way, and I can't see any situation where they've managed to address this properly. So this is a very relevant question, and I think if somebody can solve this, fantastic. I won't name a project. At the moment, I'm working on a project in Iraq. The government want us to do one thing, and they have this in their vision that this is what we would like you to achieve. The donors have another pull. The donors want to do something, but not everything. They have limits. Our conservation experts, they love this monument, and they are, so closely attached to this monument, and they want to really do justice to this monument. Architects, we have another pull here. We have another vision we want to see being delivered. I see the reason why we're having all these different people pulling the project in a different direction is because right from the outset of the project, we didn't sit together. We didn't sit together. We didn't discuss it enough. We didn't have enough time, and we didn't give enough time to the project to understand the needs of the other. It became more of a project for the donor and not enough time given to even the community. I can say we haven't sat one time with the local community, so they feel ignored. And it's a real tragedy because as an architect, we still have to deal with it, and we don't know what to say to them. But project took its course, and we look back and we say, we failed here. So my kind of final thought here, any heritage project, it's not a ego project of any specialist. It belongs to the community. It belongs to more than one person. And somehow we need to find a framework or a way in every heritage project that we talk and we find a way to move that project forward. Thank you.
Does it work? Yes, it does. Thank you. Thank you so much. That was wonderful. And well, let's talk. Well, let's turn it back on the community in form of all the people, all the knowledgeable people gathered here, and hopefully also on Zoom. We have quite a lot of problems to solve. I don't know how much time we have to solve them. Okay, so we have 20 minutes to solve all these problems. Who would like to go first? Either making a comment or asking a question. I don't know if we...
Good evening. My name is Diana, and I have a question. You talked about actualizing the monuments, making them relevant. And there are various layers to this question, the material one, the various approaches to restoration, various charters. And I'm interested in involving the communities to work with these monuments, because what I usually see, not only from my architect's point of view, but from a tourist point of view, they are turned to museums, to places to store various household items. But can we consider the use of the monument and change its function? For example, using it as a kindergarten or school, or giving it some other function. Is there any discourse on this topic, whether on monuments, on making them relevant, on giving them a different function that they used to have? Thank you. Well, I can start. Yes, if we talk about the discourse in Ukraine and internationally, Ukrainian discourse is already past this stage of this effective economic use of this heritage as tourist object. So this is well behind us already. Why? Because especially COVID-19 demonstrated this thing. And another moment is participatory discourse and the matter of a strong voice of the community. This introduced a new discourse that the heritage can only remain alive when it's being used for the community in a sensitive way, but it's being used for the community in a way that makes sense to the community. And I think that in Ukraine, we are at the start of this discourse, and we require knowledge here. And this is the knowledge we're going to impart on students, on student architects in our courses, because we basically don't work with them. We don't teach them to work with heritage as a tourist object. And this is the dominant approach in Ukraine. And this is something that we should talk about also in our capacities, and as experts, we should teach our students and provide this broad framework of critical thinking for an architect who would arrive in this object and will be able to build a dialogue with the community, because very often our communities are a bit lost, because sometimes these objects are in really bad condition. It's a fact, and they are rather a problem than a benefit for a community. And it's important to think together with the community what is another way of using them besides the tourist use. And I think that we are at the beginning of this conversation, so we are encouraging all of you to promote this topic. I apologize. What I wanted to add, Irina said that the architect who is working on conservation, on restoring, is bound by the legislation and by current restoration norms and regulations. And the legislative base is something that we should talk about and something that we should change, because if we live based on the old norms and standards, we won't be able to carry out many projects and make them modern. Yes, it is really a problem. The legislation that restricts the work, the limits it, is a problem. But when we talk about heritage, we don't only limited to the monuments that are parts of the list. It's cruel to say, but it looks like in the modern Ukrainian situation, those monuments that are not on the list are lucky. I totally agree. I would like to add to what Yulia Sergeyevna said, especially when you talk about the question of inclusivity. Monuments and inclusivity are the things that involve a lot of nuances, a lot of misunderstandings, and a lot of issues. Good evening. I would like to add to what Yurko said and to what Irina said about managers who, as a result of the educational program, would be able to work with local governments, with government bodies. So, I have a suggestion to make to Kharkiv School of Architecture. I would like to suggest that we think how to make it possible that the students and graduates of this program, having arrived in the local government bodies, do not disappoint in 6 months from what they see, from the work that they see, and from the challenges they face. I don't want them to lose hope. So I would recommend that part of the program also works with local governments, with government bodies, so that we demonstrate to the students how it actually works in practice. And again, people who will be inspired by it and will understand that they are capable of making a change. If they choose to work in local governments, they should understand what they are getting into. I also think that we have a huge issue with management in local governments, in regions, because people who manage this work have very different competences. And besides students that we need to work with, when it comes to restoration, we should also work with those people who represent the government, because very often, when it comes to posting a nice Facebook picture, people just do everything super fast without discussing the question properly, and it impacts the result in a negative way. So within this program, I think this is something that we should pay attention to, these aspects of the work. Thank you. Thank you for your comment. We will take it into account. Could I introduce Pavlo Buhaychik? For a long time, he was the head of bureau called Heritage, and right now he is the director of a museum complex, Lechakiv Cemetery. From our side, so the approach of our School of Architecture is that the practitioners teach in our school, and a way how we immerse our students into the reality is imparting our knowledge and our practical experience on our project, as sharing this experience. We also have teachers who work in the city council, so we send our students to have some internships in city councils, but of course it's not enough. And the reality that we're facing, we should talk about this reality, and we should prepare our graduates for this reality, because this job is a complex one, is one of the hardest jobs. And one of the important components is that we don't only share solid knowledge with them, we prepare them for this complicated but highly interesting professional life.
На перше питання коротко теж хотів би. Насправді на сьогоднішній день йде пересмислення функції як музейних
like to discuss this question. Now we are reconsidering, rethinking the function of museums and other heritage objects who are gaining new functions. Like, for instance, on the occupied territories, some of them were used to torture people and to contain people in the basements. And so such objects could be both memorials and museums and educational centers. And when we are talking about museums, they shouldn't be a place to store historical objects. And Kharkiv School of Architecture is doing a great job in modernizing the Museum of Literature in Kharkiv. At least there was an idea to make this museum not a facility to store objects, but to be a space of promoting culture. So yes, there are ideas like that, but another thing here, Ukraine is on the verge of renovation. Everyone is discussing this. Very recently, an office for fostering renovation was founded, and we are now talking about preparation to rebuilding. So architects are playing the key role here, not only in documenting some monuments which are in rather poor condition or which are ruined, but also architects must contribute to the concepts of rebuilding and renovation of Ukraine. What to rebuild, how to shape the functions, what to do with the village museums which used to be never visited. Maybe they should be transformed into clubs and cultural hubs to become a really community important spaces. Everything depends upon architectural solutions. They should be of high quality, and they should also be feasible, because it is not possible financially to restore everything that was lost. So the role of an architect is key here. Right, Hanna Gavrilov, I have a comment. A common comment. If we're talking about wartime heritage, and here in Halichina, we say, well, we do not need war to ruin it. We have done it ourselves. So I would like to make a comment here. It is very interesting, really. And so today we are talking about the following. In your project, the goal is to really document 30 objects in our region. You would like to have skilled students, excellent teachers. You would like to have real life cases and structures which are listed heritage, and those are sacred buildings which no one needs actually, and they are a problem and a burden and a legal problem, and your cooperation is about bringing together different players. So you need to document, to join different perspectives, and also to ensure participation. And another very urgent issue here is participation, because we're talking about communities and local governments. In Lviv, the authorities are okay. We have strong community, and yeah, there are regions in which we haven't even started this work. But there is one thing, and we have a dream. In Halichina here, before the war, a lot of churches and religious structures were built here, and 100% of such objects are very light, very small objects, just to mark the Polish presence here. They are very economically friendly, they are very manageable, and I think they will make an excellent project for a student. They're manageable, they're doable for a student, and at the same time, they are a very they are a burden to the communities. They are contestable heritage. They are contestable in terms of religious heritage, and they are contestable in terms of national heritage. They are discussion provoking. They have legal, national, and state issues. So maybe we should focus on these objects, and maybe this could be a really cool project, because it will provide swift results. They are hubs for partnership. Maybe I'm just pushing it too far, but I guess for you, really, this would be working. It could be a really cool case for your school, and it would be like presentable, you know.
Це мої останні відповіді
My
звучать як
response
промоція
would
Харківської
be
школи
like a
архітектури.
promotion of the Kharkiv
Але
School of
я хочу сказати,
Architecture, but
що ці кейси, з якими працюють
the
наші
cases
студенти, це
our
все
students
реальні
are
кейси.
working with are all real
На студійних
cases.
проєктах від першого до
Studio
останнього
projects
року це
from the
все.
first year till the last
І
year,
третій рік
graduation
у нас
year, we are doing only
присвячений
real life
спадщині, і це завжди
cases,
є
and
кейси
some of them are
спадщини.
heritage
Ми маємо
cases for
певні
senior
обмеження,
students. We
і це
have
в першу
specific
чергу фінансові
restrictions,
обмеження, що ті кейси, з якими ми
financial
працюємо, з якими наші
limitations.
студенти працюють, вони
The
є в
cases
межах
we can
Львова.
take
Так, тому
must
що це
be
є реальна ділянка, з
within
якою
Lviv,
студенти
because
реально
this is
працюють.
a
Так,
realistic
але ми для того
area
і якби
which is
подаємося на
approachable
такі
for
гранти і
students.
розширюємо нашу
But
співпрацю,
yes,
щоб
we are applying
розширювати наш
to get
ареал
grants
дослідження.
so that we could
Я,
expand
Ганусю,
our
розумію,
scope
що
of
ти маєш на
operation.
увазі.
I understand,
Так, і це би
Hannah, what
хотілося
you mean,
дуже швидко і
and
дуже добре зробити.
actually,
Але
yes,
питання того,
we
що
are eager to do it
така
quickly and
ґрунтовна
efficiently, but
робота
the
зі
thing is,
спадщиною,
when we start
яку ми
working with
хочемо
heritage,
зробити
our
як
work must be
сталою, яка потім
well-grounded,
буде працювати
it must be
на себе,
substantial,
тобто
and
вона так
then
швидко
it
не
will
робиться.
become
Тобто
the
це є цілий
self-propelling
етап
engine. But for this, you need
дослідження,
time. We
яке
need
має
time for
бути
research,
ґрунтовним
which
і
should be
довгим. Це є
profound
цілий етап
and long. We
документації.
have a whole stage of
Я не дуже вірю,
documenting
тобто
heritage. I
в
don't
такі
believe,
швидкі
to tell you
результати
the
просто
truth,
картинок.
in quick results, in like producing
Можливо,
pictures,
вони
which
також
are very
мають
appealing.
місце бути,
Maybe
так, але
we
якщо
should
ми
have
говоримо
some,
про
but
якби
when
професійні
we are
інституції,
talking
які
about
займаються
professional institutions
цими темами,
doing
воно
such
займає
topics
час. Тобто
seriously,
добра
you need time for
документація,
that.
добра
To make it
робота
high
і
quality in terms of documentation, in terms of
прийняття
work, in
правильних
terms of taking the
архітектурних,
right, architecturally
концептуальних і
right
соціальних рішень
conceptual and
щодо
social
спадщини, воно
decisions
потребує часу.
needs time.
Can you hear me? Yes. So time is apparently what we don't have anymore because we have run out, our colleagues tell us. So I really hope there will be a moment at least to continue this discussion. And I'm sorry we were unable to connect with friends and colleagues who watch it over Zoom. But there will be other opportunities, and we clearly have to continue this discussion. Hopefully, this is not the last time we meet in this with these speakers, with this audience. I know that, Jurko, you had one announcement to make before we wrap up for tomorrow.
Right. Tomorrow at 16 sharp, the Kharkiv School of Architecture in this lecture hall is hosting a discussion of ideas to gather digital data. So to put it briefly, our organization has been digitalizing stuff for 8 years, and I can say that in Ukraine we have around 300 architectural monuments digitalized in Ukraine. The issue is Sofia Kievska was planned for digitalization for 5 times. Some people, there was a lack of connection between the efforts. Some architects, initiate projects, but they don't know what we have started. For instance, Yevhen Konovalets street was scanned by us 5 years ago. We got the funding, but we were scanning the neighborhood, and as you know, on the 14th of September, it was hit by a missile, but we have the data, and tomorrow we are presenting our idea of a resource where an architect could go, link in, and know exactly what is done in terms of digitalization, not to overlap efforts. So at 16 sharp tomorrow, we are showing what is done already. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you so very much. So we hope to see many of you tomorrow at 4:00 p.m. And for now, thank you so very much for being wonderful panelists and wonderful audience. And once again, thank you to our founder for making it all possible. And please keep following us, keep advising us, keep connecting with us. And we are looking forward to seeing everyone again. Thank you so much.